start. So the subject I am supposed to handle is what we call financial modeling. So some may have heard of this subject, for some this might be a new topic because it has two terms, financial, and then you have another term, modeling. So most of the time those who haven't heard of this, you try to understand what this is all about. When you handle finances, it's something to do with money for sure, right? So we have money, then we have modeling, right? So it's going to be much more interesting to attend this class and learn this for all these guys, right? We are going to talk about how you mix finance with modeling, right? However, this kind of modeling that we are discussing is different to this modeling. We can also discuss about it if time permits. But when it comes to modeling, what we are trying to do here is we are trying to understand financial modeling. So it's different to what you see on the screen, right? We are trying to use a modeling technique to build some concepts that we learn in finance to get a lot of things done. So I will talk about the modeling part later, what we are going to do with modeling. So let me first touch upon the areas I want to cover. Right. What is this? It's not coming. Okay, I'll lose that one. Okay, sure. So these are the areas we are going to cover with this. Appreciate the role of computers in analyzing the financial activities of a business and decision support. So this course is essentially a technology driven course. When you say technology, it's not very high-end technology we are talking about. We are talking about Microsoft Excel. I'll explain about it later. So our tool is Microsoft Excel. So we use that as a tool to understand some of the financial concepts and then implement them in an organizational context with those tools. And we also look at how you use these models to solve our problems in the organizational context. It is not necessarily direct finance related stuff. When you say modeling, it can go a little beyond that financial domain and it can also touch some business aspects as well. So we will discuss some of these things later. And we also look at how you use this in your decision making process in the organization to make it better and faster. I'll give you one example. Let's say you have acquired fixed assets. When you acquire fixed assets, you need to understand the financial implication. So you obviously will have your initial capital outlay, then you have depreciation. Then you want to understand the implication of this depreciation concept on your financials, and even product costing, it has an impact because you get a portion of depreciation into your product costing. So if you want to see the impact of this, you have to manually calculate based on the depreciation rate and various other parameters, how much is the depreciation per year. But if you want to simulate it, right, what if we change the tenure of 5 years, 6 years, 7 years? What if there are differences in different techniques? Because when you do depreciation, there are different techniques, methods. So rather than doing this manually, you can build a small model where you can enter the details, the cost, the life of the asset, and the method that you want to apply, and let the computer give you the outcome. And then you don't need the technical knowledge, and you can easily repeat that exercise. So we are going to learn how to build that model And for that matter, even if you are not in finance, let's say you are in the sales, you want to introduce an incentive scheme for your sales team. And depending on different types of sales achievements, or maybe with certain other parameters, not only in terms of value, sometimes you also want to talk about, okay, I will give you a incentive if you achieve this particular sales target, and at the same time, if you achieve a minimum of this number in this newly introduced product, you get an additional 1%. And you also have certain other criteria. You are not entitled for this incentive if you have absenteeism more than 3 days or whatever. So you can have different parameters in your overall scheme. You can simply automate that. And you develop a template and you can distribute among your sales reps or your sales leads and say, okay, you just enter your team details, the name of the person, the sales amount they have achieved, whatever the other parameters. The template will tell you how much incentive that person has earned, or whether he is eligible for the incentive scheme or not. So these kind of practical scenarios, you can apply it to any area. You can even calculate your bonus entitlement if you are in HR, right? Bonus entitlement. Or if you want to apply this kind of mechanism in your operations, productions, anywhere, so you can rationalize that and build a model so that you can easily get the outcome. So you can even get a person who has no technical know-how to interact with the model, because that person has only need to enter the details, that's all. So that's what we are discussing here, how you use these computer-based models in your commercial decision making. And we also talk about things like financial mathematics, time value of money. So that's where we even talk about the value of money today versus tomorrow when you want to make a decision in terms of your payment plans, even in terms of your investment plans, even if you want to think about whether to invest in stock market or elsewhere, what would be beneficial, and things, fundamental things like if you want to borrow from a bank or any financial institute, you might also want to know what would be the installment. So if you go to any website of banks today, you can enter the details and you can get the installment. But you can understand how it works. You can build that template in Excel. Then you know the mechanism. Then you know how it works. You can do your own loan schedule based on that. Right. So that kind of practical areas. And if you have some money, you have to make a decision. Where am I going to invest this? Which option gives me a better return? So if you go to a particular bank, they say we have a fixed deposit option, we pay interest biannually and you at 10%. And if you go to another bank, they say we pay you interest on a quarterly basis, but the rate is 9.75. So you are confused now. One party is saying 10%, but biannual interest payment. Another party is saying 9.75 quarterly interest payment. By the look of it, the first option seems better because it's 10%. But if you really look at the effective interest rate, the second option would be better sometimes if you calculate and see. So sometimes we miss the bus because we only look at the face value. So that kind of decision making is possible when we learn this financial mathematics. That's why I told you, irrespective of where you work, sometimes these concepts we are going to discuss here are relevant in your day-to-day financial decision making as well. So the idea here is to talk about how you build models based on financial concepts, and due to the very fact that we have non-finance people here, right? So if someone asks what is the level of financial knowledge I need to take this course, the minimum requirement, minimum knowledge of finance for you to take this course is 0, right? That's where we start, because we don't need any knowledge in finance to start this course. That's why before we get into the modeling part, we're talking about the financial part. We discussed the basic financial concepts from the beginning, but we go at a little faster pace, so those who have some finance background might feel that it might be too easy for me, or it might be boring. I think we have some people here who have done the course. You can check with them whether it was the case. So what we do is, we are not going to the very detailed technicalities as to how you do things, because as I told you at the beginning, the intention is not for you all to go and sit in the accountant's seat after this course, right? So we don't go to the extent of the accountant's job, but we do discuss about what accountant is doing, so that you know how the transactions are captured, how the transactions are entered, and what are the financial technical jargon that we use, what steps are there when preparing financial statement. We take you through all that so that you know the process. It's easy to deal with them when you know how they do their process. And then we go to the practical aspects and discuss things, because although this course is about modeling, as I told you, we start with people who have no financial background. We first start with the basic concepts of finance so that you are thorough with the technical part of it, and then we move to building models. So in that, as I told you, I use this statement, right? Eventually, the survival of everyone in the organization, including the organization's own existence, depends on the numbers. So this was clearly evident. If you can recall, in 2008, we had a global phenomenon. Can anyone remember that? Like pandemic, we had a similar, different global phenomenon. 2008. Can anyone remember? Yes, she's nodding the head. What was it?
Subprime mortgage.
Subprime mortgage. Ah, she's a banker. She knows, right? You're from bank, right? Yeah. Global financial crisis we all experienced. And if you can recall, during that time, it was not only the banks or financial institutions who failed. Almost everyone got into the trouble. We had big brand names like General Electrics, Fords, right? The known brands, those are the names we find in the strategy books, marketing books, management books. And the gurus who wrote those books were serving those companies, right? The best of the marketing gurus, the best of the operational gurus, best of the IT, everyone working for those organizations, at least consulting. But despite all of them, when your numbers don't talk, nothing works, right? Whatever the function you have in your organization, ultimately your number should be in the right shape. That's why it says, eventually, the survival of everyone, including the organization itself, is dependent on how strong is your number game is. That is why it's important for everyone to understand how the number game works in an organization and how you all can contribute in different places. And the second thing is how the financial strategy works in organizations. It's also important for you all to know how the financial strategy of an organization works. I'll give you an example. This was a real case, then I just translated into a case study. HR department had a task after doing the employee survey, engagement survey. They have noted that the engagement score is below what they wanted to achieve. So they wanted to improve this engagement score by 10%. So the task given to HR was, you need to come up with a strategy to improve this engagement score next year. So you need to plug in the necessary ingredients in the strategic plan this year from HR point of view to cover that up. And they have come up with, among other things, there is one element they have come up with was, they noted that there is this deficiency in the organization that most of the employees have complained of, that they don't have a proper area for lunch. They don't have a lunchroom. And then they don't have any allowance or any subsidy for their lunch either. When you look at the competitors, they have either of this. Either certain companies subsidize for their lunch, or some companies have better area, or nice lunch room. So the HR have identified either of these two options can contribute to a better engagement score among other things. Either to give a lunch room or give them an allowance to cover up their lunch or the lunch subsidy. HR has decided collectively building a lunchroom is a daunting task, let us go with the subsidy option. And they plug in that into their strategic plan. And when you consolidate the strategic plan, mostly the strategic planning process is run by the finance department. And the finance guy has cut it. He has said, no way. Last year, the maximum deviation from the last year to the next year in your projection should be 5% or whatever they have given the target. This is going on. No way. And then, that's it. Then the HR goes to the top and says, look here, you all wanted us to improve the engagement score. We came up with a strategy, finance shut it down. Don't blame us. And this is a usual battle in any organization, not only with HR, with marketing and everyone. However, if you look at this story a little further, no one bothered to figure out why finance has cut it. Neither finance wanted to explain it, nor the HR wanted to question it. They just stayed in two sides and protected their egos. But if you look at this differently, if the finance guy can come and explain why he did that, he will explain. So this is the better version of it. The reason why he didn't want to do that is, given the difficult climate, their P&L is under pressure. So they don't want to overburden the P&L or the profit. So therefore, they cannot absorb a cost escalation for the next year. So their strategy, financial strategy, is to maintain the cost level at a certain amount or frame so that they can safeguard their bottom line. However, because the organization has done well in the past, they have better reserves. They can spend, cash-wise they can spend, they have enough reserves. If these two guys sit together and explain the story, the finance can say, look here, if you have an option that doesn't overburden my P&L, but you need cash, we can consider. Then the HR can come up with the second option they dropped. You can build a lunch room which has the same impact like the subsidy, which requires a lot of money, but the finance can give that money. You see the difference. So if others understand the financial strategy of the organization, you can better align yourself and discuss things and make optimum decisions. And that is why it is important for everyone to understand the financial strategy of the organization as well, rather than working in their own silos. And this has become a major problem in many organizations. So the best part is, the marketing and finance are the best friends, right? So always when you come up with a plan, they say, show me money, then I'll approve the expense, right? And the marketing will say, I can't guarantee you the sales. Marketing is not just, sales oriented. We also need to build our brand equity. There are a lot of other things that they talk about. The finance guy can't understand that sometimes. So that's why it is important for us to have these conversations. So if you look at the examination point of view, I'll quickly go through this and I'll come back with any questions you have. We have an assignment, it's a group assignment, 40 marks, and we have exam, 60% overall weightage, and in the exam, you have a 60% practical, 60%, 40% written. Practical means there is Excel-based practical test. Right? We were the first to introduce that. Earlier it was a written paper, even Excel formulas were supposed to be written on paper. So we introduced the practical version of it. Now we can do it with the computer. And 40% written, and out of the 60% practical, all questions are mandatory. You have no option, you have to answer all the questions. The balance 40% written, you have 4 questions and you can answer 2 questions, 20 marks each. That's how it works in the exam. So the pass marks, 50. Out of the 50, you have to get minimum 50% from the exam. That means if you get total marks for assignment 40, and another 10 here won't get you there. right? You need minimum 30% here for the exam to pass the exam. So then, if I am to talk about minimum 30% here, 20% here, it's enough. Even if you get entire 50% here without this, still you are through, right? There's no minimum mark requirement from the assignment, but the assignment is good for you to earn a good grade if you work well, because it's not difficult. It's a group work. We'll explain details later. And it's open book, right? You can take any kinds of notes to the exam, but the idea is not to open the book at the exam, right? You have to study, because when you stay for that, then you won't have time to understand and figure out the answer, because most of the time we make this mistake. If you have heard, right, don't underestimate open book exam, because you can take the books. Time is key. So you need to study. Taking the note to the exam is just an additional support that you have or backup, right? You have to study similar to a closed book exam, then only you get it right. And most of these things are conceptual. I don't have to buy heart like poems. Get the concept right. If you get the concept right, you will never forget it. That's how we teach as well. We teach it through examples, stories, then you can understand it, you will never forget it. Right. As some of your previous participants said, attendance is key, not because it is difficult, but because this is a different type of a course that you need to have practical understanding, because some of these concepts that we discussed can be better understood when you listen to the examples and stories that we share. Because sometimes when I explain one concept with one story, he will understand, but not you. When I repeat it with a different example, he might understand. So you can have that ability to question the lecturer and get it better than just listening one way. That's why it's important to have active attendance participation. I'll give you one example. We had a student in the class who was a country IT director of a multinational. So you don't have to think about his IT knowledge. But this gentleman attended only, I think, 2 classes when we discussed about the Excel part. Because Excel is, I'm an IT director, so Excel is, it's kind of an embarrassment for him to come and sit and understand or listen to Excel lessons. But you know what, in long story short, in the interest of time, he failed the exam, because he couldn't answer the Excel paper. You can be the IT director, but you don't do Excel work every day, right? So that's the very basic example I give. And second time I think he got through, but you don't want that unfortunate situations. It's not difficult. If you attend the class, you can clarify it, you can get the best out of it, and you can also enjoy your company and interactions, right? So attendance is one, participation is another, right? That especially online, right? I can see the names. Sometimes mistakenly when the video is on, we can see what's going on, right? So your participation is very important. It's not a longer period, as Kapila mentioned at the beginning. Your active participation will help both ways, because you don't have to then again spend another time to study this, waste of your time. If you can get it in the first round itself and the class, that's it. And you can clarify your doubts then and there. And practice is key, especially when it comes to this Excel part, the practical part, because you don't get the same thing that you discuss in the class and the exam, you get a different scenario. Your application knowledge is key when you try them. So therefore practice is key, and you can share, because there's no competition here. Everyone can get distinctions if you do well, right? There's no competition, there's no minimum number. We only pass 25 students out of the total, there's nothing like that, right? It will improve because if you share, if you help other, if you educate other, your knowledge becomes much more sharpened. So enjoy the fellowship. I'll quickly, in the interest of time, I'll quickly talk about this, because I just jotted down, otherwise I can forget it. About this Excel thing I told you, the tool that we use for modeling is Microsoft Excel. So most of the people think, yeah, we all know Excel. I'm a heavy user of Excel. But I can guarantee, I can challenge that those heavy users actually do not use even 5% of the real potential of Excel. Excel doesn't mean that what you do with calculator is transformed to an Excel sheet. No, it's not just transferring data from manual to electronic. It's all about finding that optimization. Even within Excel, you have tools to optimize yourself. So there was one engineer in the class who used to consolidate his projects all over the country because of the sensitivity. He couldn't hand it over to another person below him. He had to do that. He was explaining me in the class that he used to take about 6 days to consolidate all these projects into one final template and present it to their board. And after learning some of these concepts like VLOOKUP and various templates, he has cut down that 6 days work to virtually half a day. Because now he doesn't have to repeat most of the things that he does. He simply has given some templates. They give the information in the same format. He has linked the files. Now just a matter of plugging them and running the macro. So you can imagine the amount of time he has saved, virtually 5.5 days. So that is what we say with Excel. I think you all have your mobile phone, right? If you don't have a calculator, one quick one. I'll just need 5 minutes, Kapil, I'm done now. Do you know how many rows in an Excel sheet? Any idea? If you look at the latest version, depending on the version, it can change. But if you take 2010 Windows version, it has, you can get the calculator. You can get the calculator in the phone. Just type this 10,10,48,576. That's the number of rows in a single Excel sheet. Then multiply 16,384. 16,384. That is the number of columns in an Excel sheet. What is the answer you get? Any idea? What is the answer you get? Do you need any politician to spell it out? So I mean, what is it? It's the number of cells in a single Excel sheet. Over 17 billion in a single Excel sheet. If I put it in a further perspective, if you imagine each cell 1 inch tall, 1 inch wide, right? 1 square inch if you resize the cells. The total area in real life terms is 11.8 square kilometers. If you have 1 inch per cell, right? It can be even more than that. You can resize the cell size. 11 square kilometers. This is one sheet of a single Excel file. How many sheets you can have, right? How many files you can? So that means you can store the entire knowledge of your organization in an Excel file. That's the capacity. Few more things. A cell can contain 32,767 characters. One cell. 16 million colors and 65,490 formatting styles. Just few of the parameters. So you can imagine the potential. You can run an entire ERP with Excel. So that's why sometimes people underestimate the power of it. So we are discussing most of this stuff in the class depending on how it relevant to the exam, and outside the exam also if someone wants to clarify, we will discuss. So that's just to give you a little bit of perspective. Sometimes, as Kapila said, some might want to do this for exam purpose, some might want to do this for knowledge purpose. You are free to choose your options. Even if you want to come and learn this stuff, you can join. So I will not take a lot of time out of this. Finally, have fun, enjoy, because most of you have passed your school days, right? Study times. So therefore, this might be a good break out from your day-to-day life as well. Some people are more than happy to stay away on a Saturday from home. You have a good reason to skip, right? Okay, with that, I will conclude my session. So if those who are joining the session can continue the lessons thereafter. Any questions? Any questions? Clarifications? Quickly. So I have taken a little more time than what I was supposed to. Any questions? Clarifications? And you have two gentlemen who were there in the previous class. So they will also really help you if you have any clarification about the practicality and their side of the story. Anyone from the online class, can we hear today? Anyone from the online class, the Zoom, if you have any questions, you can ask quickly, or you can type. No, I can type. No questions. Right? Thank you. So I will see you later, whoever is joining the class. Thank you. All the best. So I will see you later, whoever is joining.